Not too long ago, I spoke about Horizon Zero Dawn, and for the most part, I praised it for what it has achieved for a team that has never done an open world game before. So, with that mindset, I decided to tackle another game from a genre I wasn't familiar with, whose studio has also made their first open world game detective open world genre. I have watched various movies and TV shows of the same, I haven't gotten the chance to play them till I discovered The Sinking City, a game developed by Frogware Studios, best known for their Sherlock Holmes games. Safe to say that they know what makes a great detective game, and Sinking City is their first take on blending their strengths in an open world atmosphere. But unlike Horizon being backed by major brands and a large team with talented individuals working on it, the same can't be said for Frogware Studios, which resulted in mixed feelings received for this game. It's filled with fascinating ideas and among the best settings, yet it misses the mark by a mile to be called a good game. It serves how a game done with ambition but without polish can sink a great game to the depths of the forgotten. Before we begin, it's best to know what Frogware has gone through behind the scenes. They had a rough start on their journey during and after making this game, with several litigations between them and their distribution partners. The most notable being with Nakon, who tried to copyright the game itself, forcing them to pour most of their funds into legal actions and having the game delisted across all platforms except for the website, which contains a DRM free version of it, even going as far as to inform the players to not buy in certain platforms like Steam in the year 2021, as they claim that Nacon has tampered the game to some extent. Not to mention that this is a Ukrainian company, where the ongoing Ukraine Russia war has also severely impacted them financially and mentally. As of now, the legal battle with Nakon has concluded. Frogware has also made the announcement that all video games will be published and distributed by them themselves, which is a nice thing to hear after years of legal battle and disputes, which could have contributed to some of its flaws, but some that are present just can't be forgiven. So let's dive deep into it. The story is quite interesting. Not the best of its class, but it does stand out in its own way. Being heavily inspired by H.P. Lovecraft's works, the main emphasis of this game comes towards the characters and the mythological creatures. While not directly mentioned, if you're familiar with the work of Lovecraft, you definitely find some similarities to it. You play as Charles W. Reed, a USS Cyclops sailor who was the only one to survive of a mysterious incident that resulted in the ship sinking. But it came at the cost of you having hallucinating visions of the past, present, and future, extraterrestrial beings, sinking cities, and other dimensional occurrences. Regardless of the number of therapy sessions or medicines that you've taken, it doesn't seem to slow down, which results in Charles looking dull and drowsy due to lack of sleep, even speaking in a low monotone voice with no character to it. While others call it lazy voice acting, I call it realism, as it's not just telling the player that he's affected by it, it's also showing it. But this gives Charles one advantage over the others. These visions sometimes reveal hidden details that would easily be missed by other ordinary person, giving him the ability to solve cases by seeing what happened in the past through certain objects, or by opening a portal once enough clues have been collected to piece together different events in the chronological order for a better understanding of what happened. Hence, he took over the role of a private investigator to at least use his abilities for good till eventually he finds a cure for it. However, it all comes at the cost of his mental health bar. While using it for too long can spawn hallucinatory monsters that can deal damage to your health. This can be replenished with the medicine or leaving it to regenerate on its own. We eventually reach Oakmont with the help of Johannes Vanderberg, a mysterious yet charming guy who has the thing or two for the color yellow and is interested in people with visions. He was the one who invited you to the city of Oakmont with the promise that the cure for this vision does exist here, and many with similar problems to yours have arrived and gotten themselves healed in the process. Despite Oakmont citizens and locals dressed up as casual or very little with what they have, Johannes almost looks like he belongs to a grand family, which is a term used in Oakmont for rich and powerful families that run the city in their own way. Yet he is very clever enough to not reveal too much of himself, but only be useful to us to such an extent. With that, we begin our story. Many of these stories are conveyed in cases where people are willing to help you out as long as you help them solve a case of theirs in return. You don't know how to cure these visions, you say? Well, my son's dead, and these bastards don't know what or where has happened to them, so I'll help you once you help me. Oh, you want this information? Well, solve my case and lend you to it. It's perfectly fine for the first few times it's been used, but almost every single time makes it sound repetitive and boring. And sometimes the cases get diverged from the main plot so much that at the end of it, when they're trying to bring it together, it feels like they were just patched in at the last minute to remind us that we were all doing for this. The flow of this seems off for some points of the game, but other than that, the plot development is really well done. The only main case that deviates from this path is, spoiler warning, when you're meant to meet Johannes at a certain location. So he will lend you some information that you seek, only to find him dead at that location, and it instantly begins the investigation. The only time they did it right with both the pacing of the case and the stake we had at hand was this one. And that brings character to mind. Many of the characters we meet are odd and not human like at all. Robert Throgmorton, the first whom we meet, is a literal hybrid between a human and an ape, and he belongs to the Throgmorton family. Brutus Carpenter, head of the Carpenter family, looks like he is blind and doesn't need a wheelchair to go around, yet he prefers one for his laziness and isn't really blind. Very rarely would you find someone who's just a normal citizen, and that makes sense. This is set in Lovecraft's world, so not everything will be normal. While the characters are unique, the character development is another story. Many a times we just see them as our task givers and nothing more. Not much of depth is given into the characters, and it really shows. Take Robert, for example. He's a stern man and not willing to go back on his decision, even if Charles were to provide a whole set of reasons with proof as to why. And that's it. There isn't a vulnerable side of him, no low drops that you could find that would hint otherwise, which makes the character look flat and one dimensional. The only exception to this character would be the fisherman named Jacob during the late game, as this is the only time where the pace changes for the better. This scene had so much character development than any other had in this entire game, and the other being Johannes, the same man who greeted you at the start of the game. By far the most interesting the character from the time we met him till now. We always thought that he was on our side, trying to help us get rid of our visions, but instead he was the main antagonist and wanted something else from us, and the way it was revealed to us is quite clever, faking his death, making us frame another man for his murder, and being able to appear in our mind's eye at his own will to tell him that it was a prank. He represents Hastur in the Lovecraft universe, the half-brother of Cthulhu, and someone who wants the end of civilization mainly because he just wants to. The amount of corruption and mad people lingering in the city is too much for anyone to handle and is beyond saving, is what he claims. He wishes to bring it all to a swift end. There are also gangs that exist in this universe. There are the Carpenters, who follow either Brutus or Graham, and they do what exactly either of them tell them to do. There's the Yellow Kings, a mysterious gang, iconically known for marking their territory in yellow colored symbols. They're also responsible for many major events that took place during our stay, from creating fake copies of Brutus at their manors to avoid suspicion that he is dead, to manipulating an Innsmouth named Lewis to ensure no one stays alive after the expedition to know why the flood happened. It's pretty clear that with all the yellow going on, it could be Johannes who runs the show, as he seems to be everywhere but nowhere at the same time. Then there's Ebernote himself, coming from the Blackwood family, who knows a lot about summoning wild beasts, those creatures that you have to occasionally take out, and having close ties with the Marsh family, a very powerful family from the Innsmouther side, who are like these fish-like human beings and have been recently plaguing the city thanks to their city being run over by corruption. With so many characters and so little screen time for each of them, it's hard to make an actual connection between them without having to break our head thinking who is who and where they are. The big reveal of this game as to why the city is sinking is pretty straightforward. The daughter of the dreamer, that is Cthulhu, has been locked up, and for reasons we may never know. But she doesn't stay silent there. Every once in a while, a new person carrying the seed will be born and gifted with it. They will know that they have the seed because of the hallucinating visions that they will get during their lifespan, something which we experience, and most of it are related to the cases that we're trying to solve and its consequences should we side with the wrong person or group of people. The seed will then have to find the seal, which is the key needed to free the daughter or decide the fate of Oakmont City, which is why the city is sinking as the prison is moving closer to that city, so it's easier for the seed to reach its place. Very Lovecraftian like, but does miss out on naming the characters of the mythos properly instead of just calling them daughter or dreamer. It could be just to avoid having them to pay extra for the rights to use them. And the final part of the story are the choices you make. Now, let me make it clear here. There are no good choices in this game. Both choices are bad. Both have their own setbacks and sets of consequences. It's just a matter of which side of consequences are you willing to see take action, and this is the case for almost all the main cases, and some of the side cases as well. Take the first mission for example. After finding out that Robert's son is dead and the Innsmouther, Lewis, is still alive and well, we have two options: report the Innsmouther who killed Albert, or inform that the Innsmouther has killed himself out of madness. On paper, it sounds like the first option is better because the killer needs to face justice. But during our investigation, both locals of Oakmont and the Innsmouthers don't really go well with each other, so you informing that it was an Innsmouther who killed his son will soon make Robert go on a rampage mode, killing all Innsmouthers who had nothing to do with his son's death, including Lewis as well. But letting Lewis off the hook will reveal that it was a bad decision, as later on in the story you'll find out that he was hired by the Yellow Kings to ensure no one returns alive from the expedition. You kinda see where I'm going with this. One way or the other, neither of two or three options given to you are the best, which makes you have to decide based on what you think is better than the other. Similar to the classic train meme long time ago, where if you leave the switch, 5 people die, or flip the switch and 1 dies. There is no right answer here, it just depends on what's at stake and which option makes most sense. Even the ending sadly falls in this category. Once you reach the end, you are presented with 3 options: kill yourself so you can let the city live for another few decades or centuries till the next seed arrives, release the daughter so it unleashes hell on the city in exchange for you to get an ungodly level of power from the daughter herself, or leave the city just to move back to your hometown, forgetting about this and just live your life. Again, sounds simple enough on paper, but with enough thought into it, it makes it even harder to decide. Killing yourself sounds logical enough, but not when you realize that the daughter won't stop haunting the city and its citizens till it's set free. So you're basically making the people suffer for a much longer time than needed. Freeing the daughter sounds like a quick way to bring death amongst the local, but who knows what else the daughter has in mind. It may start terrorizing other cities, including your hometown. You can't really trust a being like that, especially with the efforts it has been putting to get itself free from its prison. And leaving the city is again giving the daughter more reasons to search elsewhere, causing the flooding effect to occur in other states and eventually making Johannes track you down and force you to make a proper choice. Safe to say that none of them really have a good ending by any means, but what makes one better than the others will all depend on you. And that's one thing I like about this game. You know your choices are bad, you know what consequences it brings, yet when presented with 2 or more choices, the one that makes most sense to the player is often chosen. This is why there are 2 types of progressions in the game when it comes to solving cases: collecting only the key evidence or aiming to collect all the evidences, which not only gives you a small bonus of XP which you can use to acquire upgrades at the skill tree, but also can give a much bigger picture of what we're actually dealing with. Sure, the key evidence is all you need to proceed to the next case, but having all the evidence does make a huge difference. Let's take a side mission for example, where you'll have to help Robert find someone who was supposed to meet him but failed doing so. We realize that he's been killed by a robber who accidentally did so. We can later find the robber at his house through the police archives, and he claims that someone paid him to do so, but when he demanded extra, the con man shot his partner and locked him behind an illusionary wall. He mentions that their task was to steal the mirror, and when we report the same to Robert, he seems less interested in both the robber and the man he was supposed to meet, but more on the mirror, which you find out that it's his brother who passed away because of a tragic accident and had his soul locked in the mirror for unknown reasons. We later find out that his mother, whom he has no recollection of, had a divorce not too long ago and placed at the asylum due to her deteriorating health, which turns out to be her obsession in getting that mirror to save her son. Now this is where the key evidence and all evidence makes a difference. We head to the warehouse where we meet Randall, the owner of the place, and he willingly gave us the key information of the lady whose name is Bethany, a small room below the warehouse, in exchange for her to bring the essentials needed at their place. The key evidence is just finding out that she used the mirror to teleport herself to Randall's house to complete the ritual and bring her son back to life, which means she knows how the mirror works and how to get to her son out of that mirror. However, much deeper, we see that there's an arrest and search warrant for both the warehouse and Randall himself. Even a whole book on how to open portals and a diary stating that he doesn't want to do this kind of work anymore, which means Randall knows the real deal. Why this matters? Because if Bethany knows how this was done from the start, I don't think she would have waited this long to bring her son out, especially considering that it's her biological son and Robert isn't. Similar to this is how a handful of main cases are handled and how it affects your final decision. And lastly, let's talk about side missions, which I would only call as typical slop. Most of the side missions involve you having to find something missing or lost, and usually there will be multiple, where you'll have to roam throughout Oakmont in finding them. They don't provide much character to anyone or lore and are just there to make you feel like you got your money's worth at best. The only few side missions that had actual character depth to it would be the Robert's Mirror case, which I mentioned earlier, and another side mission, which you will get at the police station, where a man named Jacob worries of his sister missing from the asylum and the doctors not acknowledging her existence at all, only to find out that due to lack of food and charity events not willing to donate any to them, they played a game of lot and it landed on his sister. So she was consumed to help the starving people at the asylum, including the doctors and nurses working there. Revealing this information to Jacob will make him commit suicide at their doors, while lying about it, mentioning that a random group of people have killed her, will make him kill them all successfully. These are the only times that the cases meant personal and had a deep resonance with many people, but other than that, many were just errands to run for. But there is a small detail that I truly appreciate of this game. At the start, if you're economical enough, you can play a fortune to recite your future, which during that moment doesn't really make sense, but as you reach the end of the game, it starts coming together.
The sea will be generous in the coming days. Many gifts delivered, and many will regret partaking.
People like Charles and Professor Doe are blessed with this gift and from the sea, yet they regret partaking in it as they affect them mentally and physically.
I see old and new, a hard heart against an iron will. Whoever wins, you win too, but you'll only see that from inside a metal cage.
This is something we have noticed throughout the game. No matter whose side you're on, no matter what choices you make, the victory of those choices will only be enjoyed by the others, while you just stand and watch there with the feeling that you'll never be healed from your visions or your gifts.
And tall pillars, circled by the dead. A race from one to the next, as time itself laughs.
Your investigation journey leading to many others perishing in the process, just to ensure that you reach your final destination to decide Oakmont's fate. You can even see this at the end of the game where your body is levitating around a pile of dead bodies, and many important characters killing themselves before you make the final decision. With the story being great but fails to deliver on what it could have, we must also look at how the city fits well around it and its cases and tragedies. Oakmont itself is like Arkham City from Batman, a city that has been overrun by poverty and crime rates so high that it has become hard for us to not spot someone beating up each other or straight up killing them. Because of Innsmouthers living in the city and their religion and cultist rituals being integrated into the city, it has resulted in half of the Oakmont submerged, and the only way of transporting to them is by using the boat provided to us. Their yellowish and grayish mix of colors really sets the tone for a mysterious yet depressing city as well. The city looks like if Silent Hill and Mafia 1 had a baby, with abandoned cars from the 1920s and 30s all left in the middle of the street and highways. Even trams are non-functional. The mist covers up most parts of the city, and nighttime feels even more unnerving at worst. giving the feel that at any moment the very ground that you're standing on can at some point sink as well. Some places are kept off limits, and that's mainly because they are known as infected zones, usually filled with otherworldly monsters known as wild beasts that now lurk around the city. They mainly thrive over dead bodies, and because of increasing crime rates and many people suffering due to lack of food and proper healthcare, the number of dead bodies have increased drastically beyond count, thus making a great spawn for them in and making the area infected. These monsters range from small nimble ones that can take a shovel hit or two to large and terrifying ones that need more than one shotgun shot to take them down. Thanks to the doctor's side mission, we get an idea of what these creatures are and how they are found, many of them through rituals, but some through combining multiple dead bodies to form an amalgamation of bullet sponge enemy. Because of how poverty stricken the city has become, people prefer dealing with valuable items more than currency as it has lost its value here. Bullets, springs, and coils are some of those that the people prefer to use as currency over money. Many locals, especially newcomers, couldn't afford rent to a point that they're willing to sleep in the open air, even arguing with other newcomers or locals for reasons unknown. The map generation for the city was very similar to the one used by Assassin's Creed, which is why it looks quite detailed and well put out. It isn't large by any means, as you don't really have any transportation other than your boat to travel. This makes one to walk around and see the state the city has been. The only downside to these infected zones is, unlike any other games where you can clear these areas and make them accessible in the future, the infected zones here just remain. No matter how many times you kill these monsters, they will never stop spawning, which makes killing them pretty much worthless unless if you're grinding for some items or XP, which then these places are among the best to travel to. Best for exploits, but don't really serve any other purposes. There's even separate side mission dedicated to these events that took place before and during the flood, from the Innsmouth's grand family known as the March family and the Blackwood family joining forces and taking over the fish market to strange monoliths appearing in places like the university, similar to the ones we encountered in the second final mission. And during the flood, because of it being so sudden, it caught everyone off guard and filled the only hospital remaining in the city, leaving them to use the nearby park to be left unattended. This proves that even before the flood, the city wasn't really doing too well, but the flood just made it worse for everyone that was already over there. Now, we've seen what this game is made of. The story is fantastic, the city is set in an amazing place, while they do have their own flaws as well. They do somehow stand up on their own. But despite all that, it all comes down to gameplay, and that's where it's a real letdown. Firstly, the game screams Unreal Engine slop, mainly because of how everything plays, from walking to running to crouching, even climbing on ledges. It's pretty clear that they used the default animations and made little to no efforts in making it at least a bit different from the rest. Our protagonist also can't jump for some reason. Not too sure why they went with that, but luckily there aren't any places that require jumping. And because the map generation follows a similar pattern to that of Assassin's Creed, this results in us being able to climb over places that would otherwise not be climbable at all. The combat is a whole nother reason why this game was a letdown. You can see that for the most part, most of the focus went towards the detective part, not towards the combat. It feels very janky. From the aiming mechanics to just shooting them, even melee attacks are hard to target because of the swing pattern. And don't get me started on the hitbox of these monsters. They are broken to some extent. Sometimes the hits don't register, and the bullets being scarce in this region makes it more risky to just point blank and shoot them off. The main highlight of this game are the bugs and the lack of polishing of this game. Luckily, the remastered version did bring some fixes to these issues, but a lot of them still remain, and in fact, there were many new ones as well that caused disruption to the gameplay. Here's a quick montage of those. Yeah, you can tell that this was done in a hurry. While there can be some excuses, such as the disputes that were going on and them doing their first world open games, but there are many other companies that have gone through similar issues yet managed to make a banger of a title. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad video game. I generally like the story and the detective mechanism is on point. But it's only the gameplay and the combat and the vast amount of bugs that just made it difficult for me to explore around and enjoy the game. And the detective mechanism isn't too beginner friendly either, because as soon as you handed over the case, you're left over on your own to decide where you must go to solve and what you must look for. There's no hand holding in this game to figure that out. You'll have to read out the description of this mission to find out where you have to go, and after solving the evidences, you'll then have to use the archives, which sometimes are really tricky to use and often little to no help. I understand that this is a detective game, but not everyone is expected to act and think like a detective from the beginning itself. God, I sound like an IGN reviewer. What instead could have worked was offering a helping hand during the first few cases, and as the game progresses, let the user start solving cases on their own, if you want to have the best of both worlds. Or another option is to have a baby mode option for people who just want to enjoy the story. The game took me 50 hours to complete, but make it double if you don't really know what you're trying to do. And that's still being generous, as the bugs may increase in that as well. I just wish they took more time to polish it out before forcefully pushing it out to the public. As many claimed before, a delayed game is much better than a broken game. And sadly, this falls in the latter. There are a few DLCs available for this game, but they don't really add much to the story and aren't really that interesting. Most of it includes a letter stating please help me, but instead of actually helping that unknown person, we instead run around collecting books and collectibles. But hey, at least there's a new boss that looks pretty damn good. This is the Necromorph, which is known as the Book of the Dead, known to make horrifying amalgamations like this one to life just to terrorize the city. Yeah, nothing much about it either. Of the 6 new cases that you can solve, only 3 of them are interesting enough. 2 from the Worshippers of the Necromon DLC, and 1 from Merciful Madness, which I would like to talk about. The rest are just collecting random stuffs that don't really make sense or add little to nothing about the characters. Our first mission comes from Joyce Hayden, a librarian whose mouth was sewn shut as a punishment for some reason. Cries for help to us, stating that some woman whom she knows of in the past is back for her, wanting to torture her even more. She is too afraid to speak of any details regarding her, but gives her the address to her home for further investigation. Apparently, Joyce Hayden was a talented singer and a celebrity at some point, which is made quite clear during our investigation, where we can find a lot of posters regarding her performances. Till apparently a granny came and ruined things for her. Apparently, the granny has become so talented at her hobby for stitching that for some reason she was able to make a teddy bear from a dog's skin, while being documented by the neighbor. Just her presence was enough to knock him dead. Yet, despite all this, Joyce is still afraid to talk about her, like she's the next Bloody Mary or something. After further investigation, we find out that she is a part of the Salem witch trials, which is a real occurrence that took part in the state of Salem back in the 1690s. We have the ability to summon her at our will. Whether she likes it or not is none of the ritual's concern either. And it does seem like a group of people have summoned her and tried to kill her but failed miserably. We can redo the ritual by placing the 2 mirrors opposite to each other and summoning her and killing her. She will die, but that doesn't mean she'll be dead forever, as for the next 100 years we'll be at peace till she returns. Yet, despite reassuring that the joy, she refuses to remove the stitches from her mouth as she wants to complete her sentence first before doing so. Making all these efforts semi-futile, but hey, at least you got some XP and skills points from doing that. The other 2 come from Helen at the newspaper archives, where she needs your help in getting some headlines for the newspaper so they can garner more attention from the viewers. The first one involves a tiger, somehow terrorizing the city. It's unclear how it entered here or how it survived this long, but it make a great headline for the viewers to read. You can get more details from the main editor, who just so happened to have a strong interest in skulls for some reason. But regardless, you interrogate the man who encountered the tiger, who just so happened to have gone paranoid by that and since then won't stop thinking about it. Even any kind of sound that resembles a tiger frightens him, But after calming him down and showing him proof around the hospital that it isn't real, he reveals us the location to which he has heard it from. Investigating the area, and we see that they were about to do something heinous when someone wearing claws upstairs started mimicking a tiger noise, causing everyone to panic and run for their lives. Apparently, the one who had made the fuss had a run in with the police at one point, so we can use this information to find out where he lives. Upon visiting the place, we see all kinds of props that have been used to recreate those noises. After killing some enemies, we get to meet the man himself, and he claims that he has found courage in the tiger itself, so he hesitates to do his vigilante work without it, serving justice to the city while not revealing his identity. We can report this back to Helen, who is disappointed by the finding, but somehow manages to make it interesting enough to keep the viewers engaged. This comes to the end of the first one and on to the next one, which involves a restaurant whose only attracting feature, a life-size golem, has vanished without a trace. It's unclear who did that, but it would make a great headline to assure that the golem just walked away instead of it being robbed or something. We examined the place only to be halted by one of the waiters who just so happened to be stealing silverware from the very same restaurant. So using this as a way to blackmail him, we can examine further to notice that it was an inside job. Someone with the keys has unlocked the restaurant when closed to steal the golem and make a getaway. The only two who have the key are the owner and his daughter, which prompts you to investigate their home, but unfortunately the maid starts commanding you all over the house to do her chores. But you use this as a way to examine the house instead. You figure out that the father is a pervert, always hitting on his daughter and peeking into her room whenever she changes her clothes. While the daughter is aware of this, has already found a man to elope with. When we pretended to have completed the chores, the maid then corrects our mistakes and mentions that she is the superior maid of them all, compared to the one the father wants to newly hire, which she mistakes us for as the new maid that she has hired and begs us to bring justice for her, to prove that she was right and the father is a mistreating pervert. But also, the daughter's diary is a hint at where the golem is, at the warehouse basement, where we can locate through the archives and find the daughter herself. She claims she is convinced the goons that the gold is present in the golem just so they can make it steal for her, but turns out there is no gold as proven by one of the documents at her home. We can show this to the goons and stop them just in time before they break it, which later on reveals that it is in fact a living creature that the daughter is in love with and plans on eloping with. And she begs not to let anyone know of it or it would be difficult for them to live a peaceful life after this. But it would come at the cost of the newspaper not being as attractive as we thought. And besides that, we haven't really seen a lot of consequences lately for these side cases and DLCs, so it's best to go with what you guys prefer. With that comes to the end of our critique and The Sinking City. While the story and world building really stood out to me as a great game, despite its flaws that is, its gameplay said otherwise, which was a big letdown. While I initially played the game, I was amazed at how the story and world felt, how it was able to convey so much just by looking around, yet it all fell apart when I started interacting with it. The flaws, while some not so glaring as the others, was enough to distract me from the beauty of this game. And I hope the upcoming Sinking City 2 does address these issues as it's starting to look promising from both the blogs and the trailers. I really appreciate the work and talent put by the devs into this game, into not just this game but any game that they're working on despite the several setbacks they face in their day-to-day lives. I wish the best of luck to their teams for their upcoming projects and contents that I gladly look forward to. Thank you all for watching. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe and stay up to date to my latest upload. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, praises or criticisms. I'll catch you guys on the next video. God bless.